What's up in War Eagle War Report family? You got Ike Jones, and we are back with another morning drop. Today, we're talking about Coach Hugh Freeze addressing the media after this bye week. How are they getting prepped right now for the Missouri game? And what did they do during the bye week? Let's talk about it. Y'all know how we do right here, War Report style. Let's drop it on them.
You are now listening to the War Report. Drop.
Morning drop. It is Tuesday, October the 15th, and we are here inside the Rogue Shop Morning Drop talking a little bit about Coach Hugh Freeze's statements to the media this week in terms of his preparation during the bye week for the Missouri game. If you haven't already, please go out there and subscribe to the channel. Sitting in this morning for Mike G and Charlie 5, who normally are doing your press reaction video. But appreciate you guys for jumping in here with me. Freeze was candid with the members of the media on yesterday and talking about some of the things that his team needed to be able to do during the bye week to be able to be prepared for this week versus Missouri, and really preparation going forward throughout the season to try to turn the trajectory of the season. I know a lot of Auburn fans have been concerned about whether or not Auburn can make a bowl game. Hugh Freeze seems to still be confident that if they can get some little things corrected, they can make an impact during the last few games of this season. But let's first talk about the question was asked of Coach Freeze. How did the team prepare? What were the things that you used the bye week to be able to do? We'll hear Coach Freeze's words on that.
We had two practices. Obviously, we were on fall break, and we lifted and conditioned on Monday, and then had a Tuesday and Wednesday practice. I thought the Tuesday when they attacked extremely well, and Wednesday was energetic, as you can imagine, with them knowing they had fall break on Thursday and Friday. So it really fell at a good time for us. I thought their energy was great. The emphasis was on us. Here are the things we've got to get better on these short distances and critical downs on both sides and red zone. And, really what is our bread and butter, and let's try to make it look maybe different ways, but we probably don't need more. Let's do less and keep doing it better. So had two really good days, truthfully, for an open week. I think having fall break really helped it, because I think everybody needed a little break, coaches, players, and obviously we did some recruiting also, but it was a good open week.
So Coach Freeze talking about the open week there and saying that he felt like it was a good week of preparation and much needed. He went on during other portions of it to talk about needing to get healthy and just kind of the strain that it puts on a lot of these young players that are playing a lot of reps, but hadn't really experienced this level of physicality that you're having with this schedule in the SEC, and just really needing the time to refocus from a staff perspective and from a player perspective to get yourself back in the mode of doing all the things necessary to play winning football. But one of the things that he talked about that I want to highlight here is he essentially was saying he needed Auburn to find an identity. Now, he didn't use those words, but what he said is, what's going to be our bread and butter? We're gonna we don't need to figure out what more we can install. We don't need to be trying to find new wrinkles. We might need to find new ways to do some of the things that we already do well. But what are the things that we do well? Let's get better at those things and maybe find new ways to get into those things. And, maybe we need to block it a little bit differently. Maybe we need to do it out of different formations, but let's find ways to execute things that we know we do well on a consistent basis. What are the things that we know that these young men are able to go out there and accomplish? So it sounds as if the playbook is going to get condensed a little bit here, and we're going to figure out what kind of identity is Auburn going to be as a football team going forward? Has this coaching staff determined during this bye week, this is how we play winning football, both from an offensive and a defensive standpoint? We don't need to try to get more extravagant. Let's strip it down and let's get to the basics and the fundamentals of who we are going to be for the remainder of this season. Definitely like to hear that. The other thing he said he focused on a lot was red zone. Right. And, Auburn has struggled inside the red zone to get touchdowns this season. How is Auburn going to be a better football team that produces 6 points when they get down into the red zone area? If you really condense what happened early in the game versus Georgia. Georgia got into the red zone and got touchdowns early. Auburn got into the red zone early and squandered points, right? Field goals and missed opportunities. So, and similarly versus Oklahoma in that game, right? Like red zone opportunities, Auburn didn't have a good plan. How are we going to be better in red zone and then critical down and distance? He talked about that as well. So definitely some good things that they were able to do during the bye week. And it'll be interesting for me to see what the game plan is versus Missouri in light of that conversation about, hey, let's condense this. Let's figure out what we're good at and how are we going to be better at those things. Condensing the playbook. I don't love hearing about condensing the playbook, but listen, when you're in a time or where you're in a position that you are in right now for this coaching staff and this team, you have to drop the pride and the ego and say, hey, let's figure out how we win games. What's the quickest path for us to get from where we are to W's over there in that column? I like to hear that. Definitely good things. The other thing that he talked about was he they focused on self. Then he specifically talked about the self scout. Let's hear his words about that.
Self scout, honestly, is about as good as it's ever been on the balance, on the unpredictability of formations, and it's pretty good. Obviously, our quarterbacks have. I think Peyton's played well at times, and we've struggled at times. So it's there for everybody to see. But I think as of late, he's played really consistent, and we're going to need that the next few weeks for sure to be able to compete with these teams we're going into play.
So Coach Freeze talking about the self scout that they were able to do. So basically going back and looking at themselves on tape and figuring out, if we were scouting Auburn, what were the things that would stick out on the tape for them from the Auburn team? And he said he said it was one of the best, right? He feels as if they liked what they saw. There are some things that you can do out there that make you a good football team. One of the things that he brought up specifically was the unpredictability of formations, right? So, that's a thing when you tie that back into, hey, let's not figure out how to do more. Let's just, the wrinkles that we've put out there on film, can we exploit those better going into the remainder of the season and maybe come back to some of the things that we saw that worked well and do those things a little bit more often? That to me is the sign of a progressive offense that is going to start to resemble something that it's it's better. It's better when you can see an offense that has a clear focus of this is who we're going to be. And yeah, we're going to do this thing out of a variety of ways, whether that's zone read left, we're going to run that, but we're going to run it out of a two tight end set. And in this time, we're going to run it out of a one tight end set. We're going to run this out of a two running back set, but it's going to be the same play, same flavor, different blocking people bringing that same pulling action, but it's going to be this. And we're going to run this 10 times a game. And we're going to make sure that we're getting the ball out here on the perimeter in these ways, out of these formations. And it may look the same, different window dressing, same thing. I like to hear that about what they intend to do based on, hey, let's extract the things that we know went well. The other thing, of course, a lot of people are going to hear in that is Peyton Thorne's the guy. You might have wanted to see someone else at quarterback. Peyton Thorne is the guy who they feel gives them the best opportunity to be able to win football games. He said that he feels as if Peyton Thorne has played more consistently of late, excuse me. And what he's pointing to in that, just based upon what I've heard from Coach Hugh Freeze in the subsequent games, is really when he came back from the benching second half versus Arkansas, playing well in that game, minus the interception, which, again, we can put that largely on a tipped pass into the hands of Cam Coleman. And the lack of turnovers that you saw, it went from turning the ball over multiple times per game to one or no turnovers in the case of the Georgia game for Peyton Thorne. So he had the one turnover second half versus Arkansas, the one turnover, albeit a very critical time versus Oklahoma, and then no turnovers versus Georgia. So more consistent. And really, I mean, if we're being honest and we're trying to not go overboard on Peyton Thorne, you can accept one interception. You don't want to have them per game, but you can accept one interception in a game. But we've got to figure out that other piece as a football team of how to score more consistently so that one interception doesn't ruin the entirety of the game. It can't be these narrow, thin margins. Got to be better on the execution of scoring points so that the one mistake that you make during the game isn't cataclysmic and it doesn't ruin the entirety of the game for you. So that's the thing. I think the big thing that they're going to be focusing on is let's get back into that mindset that Derek Nix and some of the players were talking about in the preseason, which is we want to be a team that scores 40 a game. Can Auburn get back into that place where they're putting 40 a game up? Your defense is limiting teams to still under 400 yards per game, holding them to 20 something points per game, and you're winning games by double digits. Can you get back into that place during the second half of that season? Yet to be seen. But it's clear Peyton Thorne is going to be the captain of that ship, guiding Auburn into that hopefully better offensive future. Now, from a defensive standpoint, didn't speak a lot about what they learned from the self-scout, but I think it's going to be interesting to see how the defensive staff has decided to condense things, simplify things, maybe for a lot of the younger players that are out there to allow them to play more fast, allow them to go out there and react more quickly, and just play with their natural instincts and ability on the defensive side to be better on the critical situations for the team. But listen, if performance is something that we want to increase, then maybe, just maybe, you could use our friends over at Joy Mode. 20% off plus free shipping when you use code REPORT at Joy Mode. Let's call out the obvious. Everybody wants to step into the bedroom with a little dose of confidence. And, the problem sometimes is the thoughts get in the way. And sometimes, if it's 4th and 1 and you need to be able to get that critical first down, you're thinking too much. But when you prepare right, you can have confidence, and your preparation in this situation needs to be you've got Joy Mode in the system and you're ready to go out there and handle business. Imagine a supplement you can take like your favorite greens packet that gives you that extra dose of confidence and saves you the embarrassment and the hassle of a traditional erection pill. Even days when you're not having sex, you can take the SPB to boost the nitric oxide in your blood, which not only supports your erection quality long term, but also increases blood flow circulation. Make sure you head over to tryjoymode.com. Use code RAPPORT. That gets you 20% off plus free shipping. Again, code RAPPORT, 20% off plus free shipping at joymode.com. And we definitely appreciate you all for supporting the people that support the War Report. Let's get back over here and talk about the preparation for the season and how they can be more confident as a football team in terms of Auburn, and get back into some of the comments that we heard from Coach Freeze here during the press conference on yesterday. He dug a little bit more into the critical down and distance scenarios for Auburn. And this was an interesting piece for me from Coach Freeze. Definitely want to hear his thoughts on how they have gotten ready to be better in those scenarios.
Well, the thing that's been good is that having time. Like today, I mean, we have most of the game plan in because we obviously started last week. And so now are we really, really sure from everybody in this room that you feel really, really good about your kids executing this against all these different looks that we may or may not see on this given play, particularly on these critical down calls. And so just having the time to really, all right, let's go back and watch it again. Let's go back and watch it again for the third time this morning on 3 different deals that and so it will be really, and I don't know, again, you got to block and tackle, and you got to catch the football, and you got to make the right read at quarterback. But if we have a critical down, it will be very, 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 very disheartening and infuriating if another situation happens on a 4th and 1 or a 3rd and 1 where our kids don't have a clear understanding of what should happen. That would be quite infuriating.
So Coach Freeze talking about preparation during critical down and distance, and he focused on what they were doing from a coaching staff perspective to make sure we've got the right call. He's like, listen, I get it. Once you make the right call, they've got to block it right. The quarterback's got to make the right decision. You got to catch it. You got to do all those things. Are we putting this team in the right position to be able to make the right plays? Are we sure that we can execute these things versus whatever the look is? And do we know that we have a plan for those scenarios? This is the accountability thing that everybody talks about. Coach Freeze doesn't do. He didn't mention players a single time in this. He talked about the preparation from a coaching staff. Have we done everything that we need to do from a coaching staff perspective to set these young men up for success? And if we haven't, and we get into these scenarios again and we're messing this up, I'm going to be upset about that. And to me, that points to a coach who has decided, listen, man, we're not doing what we need to do to get these people in the right place. We're not. And we have to do better about that. We have to make sure we understand from every position group. All right, when we're in this look, running back room, Derek Nix, what are your young men supposed to be doing on this play? How are we executing? What gap are we looking at? Where's our cutback lanes? How are we teaching that sort of thing? It's 3rd and 1, and we need to be able to do this. How are we doing this? If it's a blitz pickup protection, how are we teaching the running backs where they're reading from this gap to this gap to be able to do that versus this front versus this front versus this look? How are we doing that in that scenario? Offensive line. How are we making sure when we're in this sort of scenario, when we've got free rusher here, we've got blitz look on this situation there, double mug line, like what are we doing in all of these scenarios to make sure they understand if they come with this, then we're doing this XYZ. Quarterbacks, wide receivers, everybody. Do we understand what we're supposed to be doing in all of these scenarios? What's the call? What's what are we doing if we need to be able to adjust off of that call? If we're going to be audibling off of that call, what is the obvious audible? What are we reading hot off of these scenarios? Do we understand all of those things? And he said the biggest thing was time. All right, we've got the game plan in. Now let's talk about how we're going to be in these critical down and distance. Now, the one thing that's disappointing about that is that's really something that you would hope that they do more of during the offseason, so that you come into the season kind of understanding that situational football a little bit better. And you're really just making adjustments off of your situational stuff. And there's a litany of reasons why that's disappointing for me. But what I love about it is we understand it's a problem. Let's take it while we have time to address it. Let's not just gloss over this. Let's be very precise in the way that we're going to go about handling, making sure we address this situation. Because honestly, that is the biggest issue for this team. Holding on to the football, not turning it over in critical situations, and how are we handling these situations that kill drives for us? Because we have opportunities to go get first downs, and we're not doing it. Defensively, we need to be doing the same thing. Are we making sure we understand in these 3rd and long scenarios, what are we doing from a coverage standpoint? How are we marrying that with our pass rush? What are the things that we're doing to make sure we have success for our team? I love hearing that they took a lot of time during the bye week to make sure that they're getting that preparation done. The last thing, and on a very good note, we'll talk about is Coach Freeze was asked about where he felt like the team was from a recruiting standpoint. Let's hear what Coach Freeze had to say about that.
Yeah, that's why they want to come here. That's the reason they should want to come. Is you're coming to a place that's proven it can play for national championships. It's one of only 6 that's done it in the last 13 years, on twice, played for it, and so it's proven it can. We got the resources. Now let's get the roster that rivals, the ones who are playing for it. And if you want an opportunity to do that in an environment that fits you, come be a trendsetter and let's do something new and different. You can go to the places that are currently doing it, or you can help restore one that's proven it can also do it. And so I feel really good right now. Obviously, there's the battles for the guys we want are never over, and you've got to continue to fight for that. But I feel like we're in a pretty good position, hopefully, to finish strong with another top 5-ish class.
Coach Freeze feels good about where the recruiting class is, feels like top 5-ish, right? So if everything goes right, top 5, but hovering around the top 5 with where they are with the class as it stands right now. And he said that, and he's said this many times, but his recruiting pitch essentially, despite what the win and loss column has looked like on the field, is hey, you have an opportunity to come here and immediately make impact in a program that has the pedigree to be able to go out here and compete. And you can choose to do that, or you could choose to go. Listen, you can go to one of the places that are already doing it, or we can go and we can reverse trend and get Auburn back to the place where it needs to be up there in the upper echelon of collegiate football. And again, this is not a new statement from Coach Freeze. It's something that he's been consistent in his messaging. I think it's going to be interesting to see once Auburn begins its winning ways. What's the pitch and how does that pivot? But right now it's working. It's getting those young men who say, yeah, we can win at Auburn, and I can see myself being in that position to make the decision right now to say, hey, I'm going to come up here and we're going to change the trajectory of this program. And you got to love that Coach Freeze has figured out the right message to be able to give to the young man to try to change. Listen, he's got a plan, and he has been very diligent in working that plan. And the results are there in terms of the change in where you see Auburn in recruiting rankings. And that's something that, despite what the record on the field is right now for Auburn, that Auburn fans should be excited about is the excuse of talent is not going to be a thing going forward under Coach Freeze as a coach. Now we've got to get these other things that he's talking about, the execution in the small moments, to be able to go out there and play winning football. Listen, some of the most talented teams in the country are having issues on critical down and distance. This is not unique to Auburn. And that's the thing that as Auburn fans, we have to widen your gaze a little bit and say, this is not a unique problem to Auburn. The difference is that some of these teams are making those plays more consistently than Auburn is, but they're finding themselves having issues, but they're squeaking out wins and they're struggling. Auburn's got to get from losing those close wins to being able to win those close wins to being able to go forward and be dominant in games, right? And that's a process that you have to learn how to do. And just having more talent does not get you into the place where you're doing that. A lot of talented teams out there struggling on critical down and distance. They're eking out wins though. And so that's going to be the difference in how the coaches, and this is what Coach Free said he's focused on, the coaches prepare the young men to be able to be in the right spot as far as the call and the understanding of what they're attempting to accomplish in those moments. And that's going to be the difference in Auburn being victorious in those games going forward. Like a lot of what I heard from Coach Freeze in this press conference, looking forward to hearing how you all reacted to those things. What are your thoughts on everything that Coach Freeze had to say? And what are the things that you feel like Auburn football needs to show coming out of this bye week to show that they've gotten a little improvement other than the win-loss column? Definitely want to see more wins than losses. But what other things do you think will show they're moving in the right direction? Before you get out of here, make sure that you head over and check out the good folks over at Rogue Shop who make every morning drop possible. RogueShop.com. Use code RAPPORT, 15% off of America's #1 online dispensary, whether it's sleep, stress, pain, or anxiety release. Rogue Shop has a remedy for you. Like the video, subscribe to the channel before you get out of here. We'll definitely appreciate if you share the content with somebody. We'll be back at you with another morning drop tomorrow. But until the next time, and as always, War Eagle.